So yeah, one thing I said I was going to make a couple of announcements. So the one was the dog in the background. Julian, I don't think you heard that. There's a noisy dog, so just be warned. Uh, Second one is I think I might post today's recording onto the public YouTube. So if anybody has an issue with that, just send me an email and we can sort it out. I can maybe cut out your segment. But what I wanted to say was these spaces can be very helpful for a lot of people. That's why I'm considering sharing it. But again, I totally understand if somebody's not comfortable with that. Um, so yeah, just pop me an email afterwards and you can let me know. But I feel like for myself, Angela used to do a lot of these group Zoom meetings, and some of the most powerful lessons I got and teachings I got was from him sharing these and me watching the recordings on YouTube. So it's why I'm feeling that I would like to share it publicly. And I do like, I know how our minds is often concerned about, oh no, people are going to see me publicly, especially if I'm being vulnerable. But it is not as many people will see it as you think. And also it will be very helpful for a lot of people. It's powerful to see these spaces. So yeah, if everybody's okay with that, I would like to share it publicly. I think it can be powerful, but we're all in this together. So I'm open to your guys' feedback. So again, you can just let me know afterwards what you think. And yeah, I can edit it maybe or whatever. But if there is no, what's the word, complaints about it, then I will probably do that. So I just wanted to announce that. And then yeah, then we'll start with, okay, I think we've got enough people here to get going now. So we'll start with some group inquiry meditation. So basically, I'll just do a little bit of guidance, kind of invite us to come into this moment, right? What's coming up here? There's no way that it needs to go. There's no getting it right. There's no getting it wrong. There's no, yeah, your mind might think, oh, I'm not following what Kyle's saying. And the other key thing is I know everybody is often on a different level. So I'll try to offer a number of pointers that can be helpful for people on different levels. So if one of the things I'm saying just doesn't land with you where you're at, that's absolutely okay. Don't then just let that slide over. Don't even worry about it. Just kind of take anything that resonates and let that point you deeper into this moment. And anything that doesn't resonate, just don't even worry about it. Because there'll be some pointers that might make no sense, and there'll be some pointers that might seem trivial. So it'll be a mix. So we'll probably just do a little bit of that. I like to do a little bit of silence as well. So maybe be like 20-ish minutes of going deep. And then after that, I'll open it up for discussion and Q&A and sharing. And then we can see, yeah, there's generally like an hour to an hour and a half. Yeah, so that's the announcements. So as we get ready now to go, you don't even need to get ready, right? We're just coming into this moment that we've never left, but we're just going to pay attention to it in a different way. So a nice way to start is often to just invite some letting go. Let go of anything you're carrying with you throughout the day. Let go of that manager, that little part of you that feels like it needs to get things right. It needs to stay on top of everything. It needs to control experience. It needs to control environment so that something bad doesn't happen. It feels like it's trying so hard and it's doing its very best. But the beautiful, beautiful thing about coming into stillness, coming into just being, is that there's no management necessary. There's no one that needs to take charge of this. You're off the hook. Let presence guide you. Let this moment be what it is. Let whatever arises arise. Let thoughts be thoughts. Let confusion be confusion. Let frustration be frustration. What if everything was okay? Even the feeling of not being okay. What if that's just reality as it is in this moment with no need to be altered? What if you're okay, despite what the thoughts might say? What if you don't need to get somewhere? What if you don't need to be someone? What if you don't need to change a thing? This is surrender. Let the moment carry itself. Trust presence. What will arise will arise. What will come will come. What will pass will pass. You really aren't in control in the way that your mind perceives. That might be scary. It might also be a massive relief. Whatever sensations are here, it's exactly the sensations that are here. Whatever thoughts about the sensations that are here are exactly the thoughts that are here. Whatever narrative is playing out in the mind is just that. It's a narrative. It's a story. Just invite yourself to gently, gently, continuously let go of the need to manage. You don't need to manage this. All of your problems, all of your challenges, you can just put them aside for now. Don't worry, you can come back to that after this. But right now, just see if you can trust. See if you can let go and trust exactly what arises. Trust that you don't need to change it. Trust that this process is bigger than you. that exactly what you need to see and feel is in your experience right now. Let the mind go wherever it goes. Let yourself feel into whatever wants to be felt into, whatever is here. You don't need to create a special state. You don't need to create calmness. You don't need to create peace. You just need to let go of the need to control what's already here. And if the mind is making so much noise and not understanding, it's absolutely okay. Just see it. That's what's happening. My mind can't get a grip on this because there's nothing to get a grip on. When there's no problem to solve, the mind doesn't know what to do. But the more we practice this, the more we can come into a different way of experiencing. And that way is much more about being than doing. It's about touching in to you as you are always. Who are you when there's no problem to solve? What's here before the mind moves? Before you can even look for what's here. It's never been touched. It's the feeling of you that's been here your entire life. From the moment you were born, through every memory you have, through every experience, what has never, ever changed? It's you. Can't get this wrong. And if the mind is busy, that's fine. Just this space of allowing, letting go, opens up over time the experience of pure being, the experience of being before doing. But the mind won't get here through trying to think about it. So if these pointers don't land, not a problem at all. You haven't done anything wrong. You're not messed up. It just takes a willingness to come into a space of letting go and a willingness to explore deeper into the experience of you that allows us to clarify. If there's tension, there's tension. Contraction, contraction. Just notice the mind trying to make a problem out of that. Oh no, this is what I need to get rid of. This is why I'm not experiencing peace. It's okay. Just sit with that. Notice the frustration. Notice the discomfort. Notice the fear. And if there's none of that, then just be. Be what you've never not been. Trust. Trust the body. If you feel that you're so bound up in thought that you just can't even get anywhere, that's fine. An invitation is always just to check in with the body. That can always bring us deeper into presence. I feel like we're pushing attention down into a space we've learned to run away from. There will often be discomfort when we try to do this. When we try to let attention drop into the body, there'll be such a strong pull to bounce back into the mind often. But as we practice it, we become more aware of that. Oh, that's just another thought. But what's happening in the body? What's happening in my shoulders? What's happening in the sensations in the chest? Is there something I'm afraid to feel? If so, that's okay. Just gently, gently. Easy, easy. Just invite it to soften a bit. Just invite yourself to keep letting go. Let go of the mind gently. It's not about creating some sort of experience. Often we can imagine, what is letting go? When am I going to let go? It's just letting go of the need to create. And even if it doesn't feel like anything's happening, just that attempt to uncover what letting go means for us is valuable. It is powerful. It is how we go deeper, is through a willingness, even when we don't know where we're going, what we're doing, how this works. It's good, because this isn't about knowing. This isn't about specific technique. This isn't about solving a problem. It's not anything the mind is used to, but a willingness to sit and go deeper into not knowing. And not knowing means we don't know. Right? So the mind will be like, I don't know. What's the unknown? That's it. What's that feeling of not knowing? Scary to the mind. We'll grab onto every single thought rather than go into that unknown. It's okay. It's innocent. It's doing the best it can. So give it a pat on the back. You're doing your best. Don't worry. Maybe check in with your heart space. See if there's a little bit of tenderness there, a little bit of compassion, natural compassion, just in the sensations as they are. Just tender, gentle feeling of the sensations of the center of the chest. And that's a natural form of love that you don't need to create. It's just a noticing. What's there? What if I let that open up on its own, if it wants to? Or just be exactly as it is? Maybe you can imagine a smile in the chest, just a little bit of warmth. You don't need to force this. If it doesn't come naturally, it's okay. If it feels like you're straining, just let it go. You don't need to create anything. You are all right, just as you are. You just need to let go a little bit of the belief that you need to change something about you, about this experience, about this moment. Just keep realizing that. Now we can just sit a little bit and notice whatever comes up on its own. A space to let the moment unfold as it does, without any agenda. Maybe you invite the body to relax a bit. It's an invitation. If any part of the body wants to relax, then it's welcome to. If it doesn't want to, it doesn't have to. But just check in. Maybe you're actively holding tension and you don't even realize it. Maybe you can loosen the forehead, loosen the shoulders, loosen the jaw, but don't strain. It's just an invitation for a natural release if it wants to. And then just come back to trust. Trust this moment. It might feel scary to trust beyond the mind, that you don't need to control experience. And that's natural. You don't need to fix your fear. Fear is okay as it is. Just continue to let this go wherever it goes. You're okay. Just remember that. You're okay. You might have some tough experiences, but definitely have to feel things you don't want to. You'll definitely have to touch into spaces that feel way beyond your mind, feel way too much, but you're okay. Your capacity is realized through touching into the spaces that feel like too much. You'll never know your capacity for experience if it isn't for feeling into exactly what feels like way too much for you to handle. It's the only way you realize that you can handle way more than your mind could ever perceive. And again, you don't have to make this happen. Experiences will come that will teach you to let go. Experiences will come that will show you that your capacity is greater than you realize. but it might force you to surrender. It might force you to let go of your ego. It will force you to let go of who you think you are. It will force you to let go of the life you thought you were going to live. And that's all okay. It's a natural process. You didn't start this process. It's very natural. So really all we can do is trust, allow, and be willing. And there are parts of us that will fight this process until it sees that that just leads to suffering. But that's part of the process as well. It's very natural. The mind wants to fight, the mind wants to fight. The ego wants control, it will try until it really sees that all that leads to is struggle. And then surrender happens. And it's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like it at first. But everything that arises is naturally part of this. So don't let your mind trick you into believing that you're feeling the wrong thing. Loss is part of this. Grief is part of this. Anger is part of this. Fear is part of this. Hatred is part of this. Joy is part of this. Love is part of this. Irritation is part of this. Shame is part of this. Guilt is part of this. And they will all come and go. And it's all okay. The mind just gets in the way and says, no, that's bad. No, I shouldn't be feeling this. No, I'm not feeling the emotion. How do I feel the emotion? Feel the feeling of not being able to feel the emotion. It's probably frustration. Feel the helplessness. Helplessness is a big part of this. Freedom is on the other side of pure, utter helplessness, of not being in control of a single thing. It's the most terrifying place for the ego. But when we come to that place, and we'll come there when it's time, and there's nothing we can do, freedom is living in helplessness, living in vulnerability, living in the fact that just like the little ladybird is helpless. So are you. And that is okay. It's more than okay. It's good news, but not to some parts of ourselves. But just know the process is playing out how it needs to for you. We're all on our path. This beautiful intelligence behind this, that your path is your path. It's not my path. It's not Angelo's path. It's not Eckhart Tolle's path. It's not Adyashanti's path. It's not the Buddha's path. It's not Jesus' path. It's your path. It's your experience. And it's just right. And it's never not been right. Nothing's ever gone wrong. Nothing can go wrong. But you will experience all the feelings of things going as wrong as they can possibly feel like they've gone. Because that's part of being a human. That's what we're here for, to experience it all. We're not here to experience the light without the dark. We're here to see that the dark is just the light that we've learned to repress. The shame is just the love that we're afraid to feel. Every emotion has its role. Every sensation has its role. Every part of you has its role. But we've forgotten that. And that's okay. All right. So as we come back into a little bit more of an active state of being, sometimes can be helpful for the transition to just allow yourself to move the body a little bit. Wiggle your feet, your fingers, stretch if that feels natural. No need to force anything. But just know that you're allowed to experience whatever you do. So we'll open up some space for discussion now. And one invitation I've come to mind for me to share is just check in with yourself if there's an unnecessary pull to seriousness. This is a huge part of this, right? It's understandable to feel the need to be serious, and it's okay. It has its place, but it is like a massive thing in the chronic illness space and just anywhere in the awakening space that we get stuck in seriousness of my story, my symptoms, my problems. This is an open space, right? We can share, but just realize that it's okay, right? You're alive, you're here, and you're allowed to laugh as well. This is like one of the things that often happens with chronic illness is we feel that we're not allowed to be happy because of how difficult our situation is. And it's okay. We can acknowledge the struggle, but this is the paradox of this whole process is that, we can laugh in the face of suffering because suffering is only of the mind. Suffering is only of the one who wants to resist, but it doesn't mean that we can't explore that suffering, right? If there's suffering, then it's powerful to investigate that. It's powerful to touch into that. It's important to allow ourselves to feel those feelings. Like everything I just said, everything has its place, even seriousness. But I often just feel like it's something worth pointing out that just don't take yourself too seriously, right? You're not, what's coming up is coming up and it's right as it is. But it's like, we don't need to cling too much to this story of me, because that's the funny thing that happens with awakening and all of these shifts is it's just like, oh, wow, that was all the story. Like everything that's ever happened to me, every kind of, it was all a story, and you just realize that you can drop it. But we have to acknowledge the shadow. We have to acknowledge the emotions that we've learned to repress. So both are true. But I think often, I'm speaking from my own experience here with the chronic illness space, we get so stuck in the one extreme of experience of how seriously stuck we are. And it's understandable. But yeah, I mean, just a little bit of lightness and it can just be a helpful reminder to check in with ourselves. So that's my 2 cents. So if anybody has any, I'm going to give this little dog a treat. Done. Anybody wants to share or ask any questions, you're welcome to now. Generally, the easiest is to use the hands up button, just so we don't all get entangled. But yeah, all right, let's start with Kushalya.
So, hi everybody. Hi Kyle.
Hey man.
Hi. So I had quite a breakthrough since the last meditation session. And
Nice.
I started working out, like proper working out, like lifting heavy weights
Nice.
in the gym, etc. Uh, and that was partially due to me accepting, even in the gym I was accepting, all the movement that I was doing, I was accepting the resistance that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh so everything was going fine, but then I kind of had a crash.
Okay.
So so that's funny.
That's how it goes.
So yeah. Yeah. So um yeah, I had a crash as in, my current crash is still better than my regular day 1 year back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
The intensity of crashes, they lessen. Like I can still easily leave the house and everything, but I'm not able to, I don't want to push myself right now in the gym, because I just want to explore this more and
Mm.
navigate my way out.
Yeah,
So,
that's perfect.
yeah, so because even forcing yourself is kind of, I feel, there is a fear of, what
Mm-hmm.
if I can't live my life that I want to live in a manner that I
Mm.
want to live in. So
Exactly.
it was kind of respecting my body and giving it
Mm.
time and accepting that, okay, maybe I just need to slow down a bit. So I just wanted to ask, number one, that how to pace.
Mm.
I believe that you have uploaded a video on YouTube on it as well.
Yeah.
While I was gymming, I didn't have much of any post exertional malaise, but I still crashed anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also, I thought that maybe I had an infection or a relapse of an infection.
Yeah.
Because what
That can
happens with my
happen.
body is, what happens with my body is, it's funny that from time to time, my body automatically starts an immune system process where it starts behaving as if I am under the influence of an infection.
Mm. Mm.
So,
Mm.
I had an infection 3 times consecutively. Like it's like having like COVID 3 times,
Yeah.
one after
Yeah.
the other. So
Yeah.
my body is kind of stuck in a loop where it feels that, every month or every 45 days, I am likely to have an infection. So it has, it's kickstarting that process of fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of a nervous kind of a period with me, because I don't know if it's an infection or just a crash. But anyway, focusing on the crash part, like number one
Mm.
question is how to pace. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about intuitive pacing, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was that I was kind of avoiding, not avoiding, but I was having slight symptoms, but I was like, okay, let them be there. I wasn't, so I had the kind of the intuitiveness to feel the symptoms, but I didn't have any sort of a proper PEM or something that I stopped the exercise. So that's number one question. And number two is that I
Mm-hmm.
started trusting the process.
Mm. Mm.
But after repeated adverse experiences, for example, after repeated crashes, or after, say, you can say repeated, somebody might have some emotional trauma or some chemical exposure or something, things that are not in your control, basically. For example,
Mm-hmm.
somebody might be in an environment where some of the family members are, uh, you know the behavior of some people close to them can actually cause or trigger such symptoms, right? So how to trust that after
Mm.
every adverse experience, I am to trust that, okay, I need to let go. So I started letting go, and I
Mm.
had good experiences, but after every adverse experience, I'm it's hard to find a meaning behind the repeated adverse experiences, and I'm
Mm,
not able to find a meaning in that
don't worry
particular
about the meaning.
experience, and thus and that is why it slightly gets hard to trust. What I have started doing is that I have started accepting that even the bad is somehow leading me somewhere to good.
Yeah, exactly. So just something I need to say there is don't worry about meaning, really. Like the mind
Yeah.
is like, what's the meaning behind this? And that's something trying to put the experience into the framework of understanding, of knowledge, and it's fine, right? It's natural, but it can catch us. Like you said, it's like I trust the experience, but then there's a pullback back into the mind because again, this is about learning to live in the unknown, really. So it's like I don't know what the meaning of this experience is, but that's what trust is, right? Trust is allowance without being able to know, and we'll play with it, right? So uh, that we will pull back into the mind, and then we'll see that that just leads to more struggle, right? That feeling of like I need to know the meaning behind this. It doesn't actually serve us, right? Sure, I mean, in places of life, it serves us, right? Like that's often in the mind can get afraid and say like, wait, what? I don't need thoughts, and you don't need a certain kind of thoughts. Like, sure, if you want to cook cook a recipe, then we can knowing is fine. But it's yeah. When we're talking about trust, when we're talking about this process, when we're talking about trusting experience, just notice how that thought will catch us up. That thought saying, "I don't understand the meaning behind this." So that's, I think, talking to the second part of your question. And now I'll talk about the first bit about pacing. And again, I would say don't overthink this, right? The way you talk about like introducing activity and learning to trust the body, that's intuitive pacing, right? And we learn intuitive pacing through trying. And then, like you said, you have a crash. The body says, "Hey, I need to take a couple of days where I'm not going to gym." Then maybe we get stuck in I'm not saying this is what's happening, but I'm just saying about different ways that intuitive pacing can play out, where then we get a little bit of afraid of activity again, and that's fine. And then we test activity again. And then that's intuitive pacing, right? So again, just watch out for the mind that's trying to understand because you're already doing intuitive pacing. You are. But then the mind will be like, okay, but how do I pace? And that's generally when some difficult stuff is coming up. Then the mind might be saying, oh, okay, I need to learn to pace better. I need to, maybe I'm not doing intuitive pacing. So again, I would just, I would keep pointing you back. That's the whole thing about intuitive pacing. It's coming back into trusting your experience and your intuition, right? Um, and your intuition, we won't always be 100% in touch with our intuition, but the more that we're willing, the more we will become in touch with it, right? So it's perfect, right? You go to the gym and then you have, and also what you said about like viruses and colds and stuff, that's fine as well. There can be many different things going on there. And again, I would come back to the space of not needing to know, not need, even whether is this a crash or is it a virus? That's so common, right? I had that so many times. And you just realize more and more that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It matters to the mind that wants to control, that wants to be like, how do I not make this happen again? But it's absolutely, yeah, it really doesn't matter. So, and it's natural as well. The more that we come out, I just noticed this myself, the immune system will have to build itself up again by getting quite a few viruses. Like if you think about it, if we've been very isolated and enclosed for a long time, and now we start, living again, your immune system is going to go through these waves and, whatever. And yeah, it's okay. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, I think that covers it.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome, man. Keep at it. You're doing great work. All right. Should we check in with Don?
Hi,
Hi,
nice
John.
to
How
meet
you?
you.
Nice to
Hey,
meet you, man. How you doing?
yeah, I'm quite fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Nice. Um, is it okay to share something and perhaps you have some insights for me?
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, for the last couple of months, I've been doing quite well. Building up my capacity from like 500 steps a day to 3,000 steps a day.
Nice.
So that's really positive.
Mm.
Around a month ago, I had an infection. I was sick 2 months earlier as well. So that's in line with what you said about going
Yeah.
into society and getting sick all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I started to introduce a little bit too much activity.
Yeah.
So understandable, I have a flare up right now.
Okay.
And yeah, I've always found big flare ups pretty hard to navigate. And I think that's common.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Yeah. And it's like a switch, then you're doing things around the house, you're doing 3,000 steps a day, and then suddenly you are at home and just trying to calm yourself. And by the way, your videos really help me in my big flare up right now. So
I'm glad.
yeah, because beforehand I try to actively calm my nervous system, and that didn't really work out. I just had to relieve all the tension of having to do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
something just really clicked with me. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and my question really is that like a couple of hours ago, I had a significant flare up. But instead of believing all the negative thoughts around the flare up, I just laid down and tried to get into my symptoms with a slight curiosity. And after about 20 minutes, I felt really calm. So that is a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, notice how your mind then wants to like, but wait, is this right? Like it's even when something good happens, it's like, but wait, and it's very natural, right? The mind doesn't, the mind's constantly living in doubt. But that's beautiful, man. That's like that's how it goes. So yeah.
Okay.
When you have a flare up, like you said, it's difficult to navigate, and then that's kind of like surrender, right? So it's like, okay, any attempt to control my flare up is not working. Any attempt to try and force myself into a calm state is not working. And then you just sit and you let go, and you're like, right now, this is what's here, and it's what's here, right? And then, like you said, often it will release, and then and if it releases, it releases. Also, if it doesn't release, that's fine as well, because sometimes we get used to maybe a couple of times it just releases, and then next time we're not, that's in the back of our mind, right? When's this going to go away? Last time it went away after 20 minutes. Now it's 30 minutes. It's still here. And that's fine, right? That's just what's there. So yeah, I mean, that's perfect. Like you're finding your way naturally into how to deal with this. And as I said at the beginning, just like that's when we get into intuition, and then what often happens is the mind will doubt intuition, right? So it's like, okay, you find your way naturally how to deal with this, and then it's completely okay to check in. It's helpful so that we know that this is the right space. But as you get more comfortable with this, you realize that, hey, however this plays out, it is okay, right? I don't need to kind of reassess. So that's what I would say.
I've always had the tendency to suppress my symptoms instead of really diving into the symptoms, really. And yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of 2 years. So since I've been watching your videos and really try to do nothing really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I also feel less numb. So just feel more movement in my arms, and instead of suppressing them. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what happens. The more we run away from sensation, because that's what symptoms are, right? It's a type of sensation. The more numbed out we feel. And yeah, it's a very passive approach of just allowing, but it just, it opens things up again. So that's wonderful to hear. Yeah.
Right.
Well done, man. Well done for going in. Keep at it. All right, Susan.
Hey.
Hey, Susan, how you? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'm in Mexico, by the way.
Amazing. What's the time?
That's what I'm shorts. Yeah, it's very beautiful.
What's the time there currently?
What time is it? It's like 9:30 a.m.
Okay. So morning, start of the day for you.
Right. Yeah. Like the morning, you guys get the evening or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sunset now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing to myself a little bit because I realized that I didn't actually know that this was strictly focused on chronic illness, and maybe it's not, but it's sort of, that was the vibe I was getting. But
Not
I feel
really.
like
Yeah. It's just whatever anybody is coming up with. So for a lot of people, it is a lot of chronic illness stuff, but yeah, it's like whatever you want to touch into, it's open for that. So yeah.
Like I feel like I just want to trust, like this has to be perfect, because that's kind of what I'm experiencing right now, is just a deepening in trust, you could say.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening, and I do have body symptoms, so I kind of I can see that, but it's kind of been, I mean, just like, is it for some context, I kind of feel inspired to share a little bit, is very recently I had what you might describe as a carpet pull, the life carpet pull, where whole life looked that way, and then I swear to God, almost in like a 5-minute span, everything was wiped out. And it's a little bit like watching one TV channel and then you flip it over to another, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, this is totally different. And watching the mind freak out, right? And
exactly.
Just going through, and right now I'm still kind of like, wow, are you kidding me? Like, kind of in that zone, like, wow. And yeah, so in a certain sense, it feels like everything's been wiped out, and it's some miracle. I mean, the bigger context is I was with a spiritual community where for quite some time, where it felt, very trusting of the leader and everyone around me. Everything felt perfect in some sense, like taken care of. God has me, like everything. I don't think about money or shelter, anything, like those usual human concerns, kind of, they're not there. You can just focus on your deepening. It's like a deepening practice day to day. And then and that was the part that it was like, I was literally told, you have to go now, like I couldn't even understand intellectually or mentally why, like I couldn't understand the explanation. So even that had to be, and so everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. So very deep time, you could say, like, just like, oh my God, like, and feeling at some level, I asked for this, like, like, it's almost like the ego just needed a good push or something, just to weaken the defenses, see the resistances, see the, like see the games in a bigger way, any hiding or avoiding. It's like, okay, it's like, no, now's the time where things have to get revealed in a way that perhaps it was easier to resist. It was easier to stay in comfort zones. It was easier to hide out, and so now it's like, it's almost like, we used to call it ollie income free. It's like everything, being called up.
It's all right there for you to see.
Yeah. And some of the core themes right now, shame, like shame of failure, and oh my God, what's wrong with me, in this really deep way. And even having these body symptoms is interesting, because I didn't get a formal diagnosis, but I resonated a lot with some of your videos, because it was like, oh, this is really cool. This is like this, using, like, it's almost like incorporating the physical symptoms into the awakening in a very deep way. So you're not like fix anything. You're actually going for the healing, call it healing, but release or letting go in a much way. And that, I was like completely drawn to that. I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. So somehow it's like, now I kind of feel like this, in my mind, right? All I can do is keep letting go and just trusting that that God has me, that the spirit has me, that, you know, that I'm not being dropped, so to speak, by the universe, you know, which is what it feels like in some moments. And what was I going to say? Oh shit, I lost it.
That's all right.
It's just kind of like, I felt a resonance, and I'm just kind of staying like really trusting intuition and really trusting the moment. And I felt a resonance to some of the things you were sharing, and I don't even know if I have a question.
That's
but
fine.
I just appreciated, you know, your approach, you know, to letting go, because that kind of feels really key right now, because the ego is like, I'm watching it, it's freaking out, it's absolutely doing everything it can to try and distract from the present and from allowance of what's actually coming up right now to be seen, you know, like so it feels
absolutely,
the core of it, you know, like whoa, it's right here. You know,
exactly.
You know, it hates it, and so it's kind of like watching the mind. Okay, it's allowance part. Okay, you can freak out. Okay, I'm going to allow the freak out, you know, or whatever it is that needs to come up to be seen. And so I'm happy to hear if you have any words. I think I just wanted to share, appreciate so much of what you were sharing, just remembering the lightness, remembering somehow we're still fully taken care of. There's this bigger plan. We just can't always see it, you know, it's like, okay, it's like, I just have to fully trust here that the spirit's got me, got me. And I don't have to sort of work so bloody hard all the time to try and control and manipulate and whatever fix it. Somehow it's all kind of, it's all taken care of, you know. And that's the lesson that I want to learn in a really deep way right now. It's probably why I'm sharing all this. It's just to kind of like just like strengthen something in my own mind. But anyway, so I think
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, it's like you said, man, it's all taken care of. And it just becomes about that intuition, like you were saying, you know. It's like, okay, you just go deeper and deeper into that intuition of following that resonance, like you said, you know. It's like that's kind of your connection with spirit, with the kind of with the process that's unfolding on its own is through that intuition. And it will just, who knows where it's going to take you. But what a beautiful thing to be able to see all of that ego stuff and not be it, right? To see that ego that's kind of doing all of its things, and it's like, and you're no longer that, you know. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Nikki.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Nikki, how's it going?
Hey, good. Thank you for rescuing me with the Zoom link earlier. Oh man.
No worries. YouTube is trying to, you know, force you away from these meetings, but we won't let that happen.
Exactly. Thank you for Suzanne and her share, and it really sort of brought it home to me that other people go through big things as well. It's not just people with like chronic illness that are going through it. You know, you can have a big life experience like Susan's speaking about, and hear someone else's strength and someone else's courage and someone else's seeing in it. It was really powerful. So thank you, Suzanne, for that. I just wanted to say that the meditation was absolutely beautiful for me. The last few weeks, I found it very difficult to meditate over these times, but something seems to be not as resistant, or the resistance is there, but I'm just like able to move through it. One of the things that came up at the end of the meditation when we were just doing our own sort of inquiry was I've spent the majority of my life like being really happy. I would have called myself like a happy person. But as I've gone through this illness and everything that this has shown, I've been like, it's been like the polar opposite. You know, I've had to deal with and feel so much grief, so much despair, like so much of the stuff that I was so not used to. And it came to me that maybe, and I wanted to just explore this with you, if that's okay, maybe the happy version of Nikki, who used everything possible to make her happy, like, you know, shopping, food, exercise, all these different things, but it all worked. It all kept me happy. Over the course of my lifetime, I've done all of these things to keep me happy. But then behind the scenes, I have been repressing everything. An emotion that came up, which was anger or sadness, I'd be like, no, I can't bear to, I can't bear to feel uncomfortable.
Right,
so
right.
Whatever it is that I needed to do to keep me feeling. And is it that now all of that's gone, because obviously that gets taken away from you when you have your life sort of changed with an illness. And then you got nowhere to go, and all that stuff is coming up and out, and that's why. So what do you think of that, Kyle?
Yeah, I think that's right on. That's the funny thing with identity, right? Is the mind will come up with something that we are, right? So like for you, it's like I'm the happy Nikki, right? And that's fine, that's cool. We often have tendencies towards some way of being, but it's exactly like you said, there's the shadow that when we're one form of identity, then we can't be anything else that contradicts that, right? So now when sadness arises, well, what the heck? That I'm happy, Nikki. How can I be sad now? You know, so it's like it's exactly like you said, it's this continual repression over time and this is contradiction that it's like, how, you know, I can't feel sadness, I can't feel shame if this is my identity, I'm the happy person. And it's all subconscious, right? It's not even like we you know, at some age we're like, okay, I am signing up to be happy Nikki, and along with that I'm going to deny all the other parts of myself. So yeah, it's exactly like you say though, right? So then something in life will come to, you know, it's like Susan said, like a rug pull, right? Where it's going to be like, okay, happy Nikki, let's see the rest of you. And then you will see the rest of you, right? And that comes with everything that it comes with, all the resistance, all the everything. But all of that is you as well, right? So this is the kind of path back to every part of ourselves, and that's shame, that's guilt, that's, you know, all of that. So yeah, it's interesting when and we can be happy as well. Like that's the beautiful thing as well. It doesn't negate the identity, but it means an incorporation of everything else, you know. So yeah.
And I think that your guided meditation led me to that, because of the way we were sort of exploring all of the different things, and it was just like this aha moment. What I loved about it was how you're expressing like that we can touch into these places like we think that we can't, because that must have been huge for me, to think that I can't tap into it because I'll just do anything to not feel it. But the experience of, you know, how COVID affected me, I went to places where I didn't ever think I would be able to handle, and yet I'm still here.
Exactly.
So for the stuff that's rising now, really it's you know, it's nothing in comparison to what that was like. But it's still this sense of wanting to avoid it, of wanting to change. Just as a little example, I've got some guinea pigs, and one of them is really old, and she's just been like my little furry soul sister. I mean, she's so awake. Honestly, she's the most awakened guinea pig ever. And I know that she's coming to the she's beautiful. She's definitely coming back human for sure.
Good luck to her.
Yeah, good luck. That guinea pig. But so I know that her time is coming fairly soon, because she's old and what have you. And I was sitting down there with her thinking, my thoughts are saying to me, you're not going to be able to handle it when she passes away. Like, it's just going to be too much for you. Like, that grief that you've got to feel is just like, so I think the grief and those emotions are so associated with the chronic illness that it feels like I don't want to allow myself to go in and feel them, because if I feel them, I've linked it somehow back to having long COVID. So if I'm having these feelings of grief, which I'll have because I've had it for years and years, it means I've still got long COVID, I'm still ill. But actually what I'm saying is, no, it doesn't. It does not mean just experiencing your guinea pig dying who you love dearly.
Exactly.
So it's
that's so important, right? That the way you say it, like because that's, let me just give this little dog a little another treat. It's getting a bit tired. It's it's so important to experience all of that, right? Loss is so human. It is so, and it's so beautiful when loss is no longer something that is not allowed, right? And that's the tough thing with these chronic illnesses and all of that, is the way the mind makes these links. I see it so much in the chronic illness space, where people are afraid of their emotions, and it's understandable, right? Because it has the physical linked to it, which is intense, but it plays out for everybody on the awakening path. That's the funny thing is, for some people it becomes a chronic illness, and for some people it's awakening with physical side effects, but that's part of it. So that realization that you're allowed to feel everything, you're allowed to feel that loss is so important, and it will happen as it does, because we'll all experience loss in different ways. For some people it'll be massive loss at realizing that everything is transitory. Some, the loss will come through an obvious path, but I love how you said it there, that like, of course you're going to feel grief because it's your guinea pig dying, and that's absolutely okay. And even if it does come with physical nervous system related triggers, that's part of it as well. That's the nervous system processing, and there might be resistance and all of that, but it's just okay. So yeah.
Great, thank you, my love. Yeah, that was an interesting exploration. I suppose it is just still like coming up in my mind, like, I don't want to feel the physical stuff, because at the moment I'm still in that stage when I go into whatever is emotional, the way the nervous system is reacting to it is so physical. It's like much more extreme than I feel like it should be, in the body.
But it is just keep like you made that link earlier. Just keep noticing that any link back to an illness is unnecessary, right? So any link that the sensations is too much, it's natural as well, right? So you don't need to we can often then get into a tangle with ourselves that like, oh no, those bad thoughts, I mustn't have those thoughts. It's fine. But just see if that's tripping us up, that like, oh, these sensations are too much. That's just a label, right? That's just the mind trying to, keep managing experience. And it's fine. That's what the mind will do. The mind doesn't know any better. But it's like we can keep seeing that, oh no, even the intensity of the physical sensations is not too much. It's like you said, like that's how we realize our capacity is through everything that feels like too much. And then you're still here. Yeah.
And it feels super nice this afternoon not to have to manage my experience and just be with Nikki, who feels a bit shaky inside, a bit anxious inside, a bit, these things. Like, just be with her, like just be with that, because of in the resistance of it. The resistance is the biggest mind play for me. Like, I'm seeing that
Crazy.
Resisting, you're having a row with your mind. That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
And you're afraid of the unknown, and you're not trusting anything. And I understand why the mind thinks all of these things, because I've been going through this for 3.5 years now. So the mind loves to grab at, yes, but you've been doing it for 3.5 years.
That but, right? It's so tricky. everything's okay, but and then the mind comes up with something. But like you said, it's fine. The mind, that's what the mind does. But I love how you said it, just be with Nikki. Be with Nikki as she is, as anxious as she is, as whatever, as happy, as sad. That's who she is. That's how she is right now. And
Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Love it. Alrighty. Let's see. We've got a little bit of time. If anybody had a question that they didn't get to ask yet, we'll probably wrap it up soon because I got to take this old boy for a little stroll on the beach. He is calling for it. But yeah, if anybody had anything they want to say.
Yeah, I got one question.
Yes, go for it. Who's that? Don. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about sleep. What is your experience about improving sleep in a flare-up or just even in general?
That's a good one. Yeah, I should probably make a video on this at some point.
Yeah.
The thing with sleep is, right, there's two aspects to this that I will try to point to here. Is there are things that we can do to improve sleep, right? So and that's fine. Like we can put in place these measures. We can such, for example, for me, like things around getting outdoors, however that works for us in our current situation. I know everybody's different, but simple things like getting outside, getting some morning sunlight and some evening, fresh air and some nature for me is always beneficial. And then, yeah, things that I like is like a cold, doesn't have to be a cold shower, but like a shower before bed to get into the body more than being stuck in the head, because that's often what makes sleep difficult, is like when we're very much trapped in the head. So these are some of the practical things that we can play with, right? Again, it's about finding what works for people, but these are some of the things that I've played with. So yeah, showers, outdoors a little bit if possible. When we're able to, a little bit of a walk or exercise, but if that's not available, that's absolutely fine. What else was there? Stretching is always very nice before bed in the evening. Again, that just invites a little bit of a parasympathetic response in the nervous system. So these are all like the practical things that we can do, right? Limiting caffeine. I know everybody's often caffeine is off the cards when you're
definitely.
Yeah. So, but for some people, you are using caffeine, and that's fine as well. So all these kind of things, yeah, like Julian is always playing with caffeine. But so the other side of it, right? So that's the practical stuff, these steps, these tools we can do. But the other side of it is noticing the fear and the fear that arises around, I'm not having a good night's sleep, and this means that I'm going to have a bad day tomorrow. And this catastrophizing that often happens, and particularly at night, it seems even scarier, right? It's like if we're waking up at 3 a.m. and we're not sleeping, and then all of these thoughts are even more challenging. So just seeing that as another opportunity for surrender, right? Is like, this is, I mean, it's and another thing, right? Is realizing that throughout this process, sleep does all crazy things, right? I've had nights after the whole chronic illness drops, and it was just like, okay, it doesn't matter. There's stuff happening in the physical body, but it's okay. It's absolutely fine. I've had nights where I did not sleep at all. Like it was 7 a.m. in the morning and I was still wide awake. And then the next day I just passed out. But like letting go of the need to control sleep is the other side of it, right? Because the mind is terrified of insomnia, right? It can bring up all of these challenging beliefs and fears around health again. So for me, those are the two important aspects, right? It's like, we can look and see if we can have better sleep hygiene, maybe. So, okay, if we're obviously having terrible sleep hygiene, then that's cool. There's something simple to fix. But at the same time, the energetics of the nervous system, of like whether it's awakening, whether it's chronic illness, eventually they kind of come together quite closely. But either way, there can be a lot going on in the nervous system. And sometimes that just means for periods that sleep is not going to be the normal way that it is. And just see what does that bring up in me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely normal to feel like you have trouble getting into a sleepy state.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that so many nights, and then eventually the body catches up on the sleep that it needs, right? Eventually, maybe after a couple of nights of really bad sleep, you just pass out. Yeah, but again, always just look at if there's something obviously terrible we're doing with sleep hygiene, but at the same time, just realize that we're not going to always be in control of our sleep patterns or rhythms either. And yeah, it's funny. I have a very interesting relationship with sleep. I just kind of let it do whatever it wants nowadays. And some days I don't sleep much, and other days I do. And it's like, I know the body will sleep when it needs to, right? I can go for long periods, go, and then eventually the body is just like, okay, take a break. One other thing that I do think is helpful is, this was helpful for me. Like I said, like a little bit of a routine around going to bed is quite helpful. Like for me, it was like hot shower, a little bit of stretching, maybe a bit of journaling, and then bedtime. And the other factor of this that is really nice is setting a little bit more of a fixed wake up and go to bed time. So like when I got into periods of good sleep, it was because I set an alarm to wake up at, let's say, 7:30 a.m., regardless of how good a night's sleep I had the night before, right? So it would be like, okay, that's how the body gets more into a rhythm of, at first it might be really challenging, like we'll feel tired and like we haven't had enough sleep, but then eventually your body starts going to bed like at the time that it needs to get enough sleep, because it knows it's going to wake up at the same time every morning. So that's something to play with, right? As soon as the body gets into a consistent routine of, I wake up at this time and I go to sleep at this time, that's quite cool. So that's for me, but I don't really do that anymore. Like I just kind of let things go how they go, because some nights I'm just working late and then I would rather sleep in. But there was a phase like during the chronic illness recovery where I did make sleep more of a priority and got into a rhythm and all of these things, and it was helpful. So those are the aspects that I would, feel are important.
Yeah, great. You have a fairly strict routine with sleep, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. Play with it. Feel what feels right for you. Like I said, for some people, again, the body will get what it needs. But if sleep is feeling important to you and you feel like you want to prioritize it, then it's cool. There's things that you can do.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, man. What's up, Julian?
Hey, mate. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Having me. I try to keep it shortly because it's late, and it's not easy for me to describe my problem, but I try to describe this scenario. In the morning, I was reading a newspaper article from one of my favorite authors, and he was offending another author because he doesn't like her political positions, and he was insulting her and blah blah. And I found very funny, and it was very fun for me to read this. But while reading, I was thinking all the time, oh no, this is just the ego-based stuff who is offending another and insulting another, and all this political positions thing is also just ego-based and in the mind. And this is so confusing me, this concept, because in some cases it's fun to be ego-based and to have this like political positions, this mind wars, and these arguments. And this is, to be honest, it's a big point for me because it's confusing me. I don't know how to handle this. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. So what is important, right, is that lightness, right? That is fun. Like, and then if it ever, because the ego is the one that's saying, oh no, this is ego. Like, oh, should I be enjoying this? Oh, now I'm an ego and blah, 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 blah. That's the ego, right? The ego is the one that wants to doubt experience, that wants to go in opposition to what feels natural. Because once we let go of the ego, right? And this process, it plays like that, right? Often we get something is enjoyable and then we get sucked into it to the point where we're taking it seriously, right? So now where you're actually getting triggered by political points where it's like, this is fun. And then at some point you're like, wait, what am I trying to defend here? Why am I trying to defend this political position? That's when you just want to take a step back and realize, hey, wait, this is all a game. Doesn't actually fucking matter, but it's fine. It's like, you can do whatever you want. That's the beautiful thing. It's play, it's lightness, right? So, if it actually, this is where it goes. Like for me, like as the path deepens, it's about not holding back from anything, right? So if I'm with a group of people and they're having a intense political discussion, or maybe it's not intense, but these kind of conversations, in the past, it would have felt like you're saying, like, this isn't, but that's the ego, right? The ego is the one that needs to say, this isn't me, this is me, this is safe, this isn't safe. It's always trying to pick and choose experience, where this kind of state of flow, and we have to go through these phases of doubt and confusion. It's the only way we unravel the process. But the state of flow just feels like natural expression of Julian, right? So it's like Julian wants to talk politics, or Julian wants to laugh at politics, then Julian laughs at politics. If Julian wants to, do whatever Julian wants to do, then that's what he does. And there's no need to keep referring back to, but is this right? Right? There's no right, there's no wrong. There's just what feels natural to you, right? There's right and wrong for, am I doing this to fit into some believed perspective of how things need to be, or am I doing this because this is what I want to be doing right now? So that's what I would say, is just notice that the ego is the one that's, am I doing it right? He'll never get it right.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much for pointing this out, because it's very tricky for me to I feel it's like I need a concept to put over every experience to figure it out. But this is maybe what you said. What is the ego doing, and just flow. But very hard for me. I don't know how it goes. It's just like, because
you won't.
It's talking all the time. It's talking all the time, and but thank you so much.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, man. And it is confusing. It is, because you're learning to live from, like, it's like you said, you're no longer living from a ground of experience and building everything up on top of that. You're learning to live in this constant, like, whatever. It's like Angela has said this before. It's like life becomes improv, but a very natural improv, because you're just meeting every experience in what feels like the most natural way. But the only way that we get, like, the only way that starts to happen naturally is to go through all of these phases where we're a little bit too much to this side or a little bit too much to that side, until it just naturally is like, oh, there's no way that it needs to be. And it feels weird, right? It feels weird not to have an overarching thing putting on top of experience. So you're doing just all right, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy those articles. Alrighty. I think that is perfect timing. Then we will leave that there. And like I said, I would love to share this on the YouTube channel. So if everybody's okay with that, I will do that. But I will wait a little bit. If anybody wants to send me an email to, that's okay too. I completely understand. So but thank you, everybody, right? Like, this was beautiful. It's only possible that all of you came here and shared, and you were also vulnerable and just willing to share yourself, to share what you're going through, to whatever, to be here. It's beautiful. And it's a really wonderful space for everybody. That's why I want to share this, is because it opens everybody up. The beautiful thing with vulnerability is when one person is vulnerable, another person is like, oh, wow, I can be like that too. I don't have to keep that part of myself hidden anymore. I can be myself too. So it's a wonderful ripple effect, this process. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Alrighty. Cheers, everyone. All the best. All the best on your paths. I know.